What's up, Boat fam, and welcome back to the God of Thunder podcast. I want to give a shout out to all those returning subscribers. Thank you for your continued support. It's much appreciated. And those new subscribers, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe, and go ahead and comment on how long you've been a Charger fan. Let me know where you're from, who your favorite Charger player is, and anything else you want to add in the comment section. I hope you all had a very Merry Christmas and got some new Charger gear. I got a couple things, but one in particular I got from Santa, aka my wife, was a new Yeti with. Let me go ahead and show it here, because if I didn't show it, she'd probably kill me. But a new Yeti with the Charger logo, and then my podcast name, God of Thunder. So shout out to my wife. That was one of the best surprises that I got this Christmas. And I hope you guys all got something good too. But in light of some recent Harbaugh news, I'm starting an official Harbaugh Watch to give you guys updates and key events on this Harbaugh timeline that hopefully ends in the signing of Jim Harbaugh with the Los Angeles Chargers. So let's jump right into it. So, in light of the Harbaugh Watch, I think there was two significant events that took place since my last video. And there was discussion in a lot of the Michigan Wolverines talking heads, couple of the podcasts that I watched, just to keep track and get some updates on what's going on with Harbaugh. And one of those discussions was from, I think it was the Big Ten podcast or Michigan's report. And there was a report that Jim Harbaugh had set a hard timeline of December 24th of him and the Michigan administration coming to an agreement on a deadline or on a contract. And if that deadline wasn't met, that he was going to stop all contract talks and focus on the college football playoffs. So that deadline came and passed. And I will say that a lot of Charger talking heads and podcasters would tell you that there are plenty of head coaching options. And for better or for worse, I think the Chargers and Harbaugh will reunite following the conclusion of the college football playoffs, whether he wins the championship or whether he doesn't win the championship. And now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good coaches out there. And specifically a recent coach who has been like thrust into this conversation of a new potential head coach candidate is Mike McDonald, who is currently the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens and is coming off a huge game where they completely shut down the Shanahan offense, those 49ers players of elite players, future Hall of Famers, and he absolutely dominated that game, had an outstanding coaching game, and has been thrust into this conversation of a potential new head coach. So, yeah, I got it. There is a lot of potential hires, but as we know, the Chargers administration said that they were looking for a new vision and going in a different direction. So, more to cover after this. But again, going back to the major event on December 24th, that deadline has passed, and it was a significant date, like I said, according to Michigan pundits. And it could tell us, if you're looking on the surface, I think that it tells us that he's not committed to Michigan as of now, right? And I get it, right? You're a coach. You want to focus on the task at hand. You want to conquer the day, and you really want to attack just what's in front of you. And you don't want to have the loom of discussion talks hanging over you while you're trying to focus on winning a game against Alabama Crimson Tide. So I get that Jim Harbaugh wanted to end the talks. Does that necessarily mean that they're completely done between Michigan and Harbaugh? No, but I think that's a good sign, a good indicator that tells us Jim Harbaugh is possibly looking towards the NFL. And then it just fuels the fact that he is leaving after the conclusion of the college football playoffs. Like, if he really wanted to be there, I think that deadline would have been met by both him and the Michigan Wolverine administration, or the director of athletics over there in college. But the fact that he hasn't signed that, the fact that they didn't come to an agreement, I think only fuels the fire of him potentially leaving and coming to the NFL. And then there was recently, as of today, there was another event that took place, and this was the press conference that Michigan did in light of their game that's going to take place on Saturday against the Alabama Crimson Tide, which is the semifinals, I believe, of the college football playoffs. Now, he's currently in Los Angeles and enjoying Disneyland, as he calls it, the happiest place on earth, as we all know it to be. He says he's going to take this week to enjoy time with his players, with his family, his kids. So, I mean, what does that tell you? Maybe his wife likes LA. Maybe his kids like LA. Maybe this week was meant to happen because this is going to tell us that, his family really enjoys LA. He enjoys LA. His kids love it. I mean, if he really loves Disneyland, it's not too far from Costa Mesa and the Chargers headquarters. So it's only a hop, skip, and a jump away, right? And then I think one of the more important things is he failed to denounce a move to the NFL and commit to the Wolverines. Now, he didn't say he was moving to the NFL, but he also didn't say he is not moving to the NFL and he's going to stay with the Wolverines and he's going to be their coach for the foreseeable future. So I think that's huge, right? If he was certain that he was going to stay with the Wolverines, he would have said that. But right now, with everything going on, there's a lot of uncertainty in his head, or maybe he knows exactly what he's going to do, and that is coming to the NFL, but he can't go out and say it right now because he's in the middle of a playoff, right? Um, so, but I said before, the stars are continuing to align. I will say that this is a move that everyone wants, right? Everybody wants Harbaugh. The fans want Harbaugh. The media wants Harbaugh to go to the Chargers. Everyone thinks it's a good fit. And the ownership, like I said, they've already stated that they're moving in a different direction, that they want a new vision. A rookie head coach is not that new vision or that new direction. A Lions OC, a Ben Johnson, or a Baltimore DC, a Mike McDonald is not a new direction. Bill is still a possibility, but his longevity comes into the question, and whether or not he's actually going to move on from the New England Patriots is also a huge question. So, this is the move, and I will go as far as to say the only move that the Chargers should make. He's an offensive head coach, he's a tough head coach, he knows what it takes to win, and he's the Chargers guy. He's been a Chargers guy, he's coached in San Diego. So, just want to give a quick shout out to Joe Reedy for asking that question as well. I mean, if you're coming to LA and you're going to be in LA, and there's a bunch of rumors about him coming to the Chargers, and he's in the Chargers territory, I mean, it only makes sense to ask that question. I don't know how it works, but do you think the Chargers and Harbaugh are possibly having a conversation this week? Maybe not, right? Like he said, he's focusing on the task at hand. He's got a lot on his plate, but I can see the Chargers sending in some comps at Disneyland, maybe VIP treatment. It doesn't have to be directly; it could be indirectly. Maybe recommending some restaurants here in LA to ice him up a little bit, or maybe warm him up to the fact that he could be living in LA. But who knows? I don't have any sources, but it seems very plausible that the Chargers could potentially be doing this just to get Jim Harbaugh, give him a little nudge so he can make that discussion. All right, moving on. I also wanted to talk about the state of the West. All right, and the state of the AFC West, and a lot has gone on this season, and I don't think any of us would have predicted what has taken place this whole season. I mean, the Chargers lost their starting quarterback. The Broncos just benched their starting quarterback. The Chiefs look in complete disarray. I mean, there's issues all over the place with them. The Raiders fired their head coach, benched their starting quarterback. So the state of the West is, it's wild. And in this new segment, what we're gonna do and why I'm doing this is because you always want to keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. And like I said, there's been a lot of drama. So let's dive in and see how they're helping us get a better draft pick possibly, and see what's going on. So first off, I want to start off with the Broncos. So the news broke today that Russell Wilson is officially benched. So, like I said, Russell Wilson is officially benched, right? And then there was additional reports from Jordan Schultz who said that this was a discussion that took place weeks ago, that the Denver Broncos leadership had asked him to take less money or waive a injury clause that would have guaranteed him a contract. And that's kind of grimy if you ask me. I don't think that's something you want to treat your $250 million quarterback like. So, what does this lead to? It sounds like the Russell Wilson era is over, and it has huge implications, right? The Broncos, if they end up cutting him like the reports say, are going to be over 85 million in dead cap space just next year alone. Now, I'm not a capologist. I'm not too familiar. I have done some reading on it, but $85 million in cap space in dead money next year alone is insane to me. I do not understand how that works. If you do understand, shoot some comments in the comment section. Let me know. Let me know what you think. But that's real hard to comprehend how a team who is going to have to pay a elite cornerback and Pat Sertan and some of their wide receivers, number 14, who's been playing lights out this year. Like, what does that say? How are they going to afford to pay these guys if they're $85 million in dead cap next year alone? But I will say that Sean Payton and the Saints lived in the red in his time in New Orleans. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that. But it sets up for with that move, it sets up for another week of battle of the backups this Sunday in Stidham and Easton Stick. All right, now the Chiefs just lost to the Raiders. Shout out to the Raiders. It was nice to watch. I never root for either team, but it was awesome to see Patrick Mahomes throw his fits and all his antics that he did during that game. I think it just shows us that Patrick Mahomes is human, right? And it's starting to expose some of his flaws. A lot of people will blame it on his receivers, which they are struggling dropping balls. But this is almost the exact same receiving core that he had last year. So to blame it on strictly the receivers, I don't think that's real plausible. I think there's something else going on in that locker room. Maybe their time is just wearing on them. You know, you got an aging Kelsey, so it's tough. So to see the Chiefs struggle in a year where the Broncos bench their starting quarterback, the Chargers lose Justin Herbert to an injury, the Raiders, and they also fire their coach in Brandon Staley, and then the Raiders fire their head coach. Is awesome to see them struggling during a time where they should be taking advantage. Um, and now it looks like the Raiders are moving closer and closer to hiring Antonio Pierce as their head coach. They're playing good on defense as of now, but they're playing with no expectations, right? They fired their head coach mid-season, so there was no expectations of this Raider team to go on a run. Could he end up being a legit head coach? Maybe. I mean, that's a possibility. He's had some good games where he's coached that defense. But I don't think that these wins or the final portion of this season is going to be a good indicator of that. I mean, we'll see how they do in the remaining games they have on their schedule, but you got to take this with through a lens of like this is the end of the season and they really have nothing to play for. They do have a long shot at making the playoffs if they win out, possibly winning the AFC West. I don't see that happening, but I have been proven wrong before, so it is a possibility. Um, but I think this is all of this stuff going on in the AFC West is good for us because it's just a complete crapshoot right now, and I think it sets us up for next year to be in a lot better position. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Chargers Broncos preview. A new game on New Year's Eve with the Chargers and the Broncos, a battle of the backups. And Denver is coming in off of a loss to New England, where the whole team really struggled and allowed a struggling offense in the New England Patriots to take away that game with a field goal at the end of the game, which if you watch the replays, it looks like Bill Belichick was completely surprised and wasn't sure if he wanted to be happy or to be sad because they're slowly playing themselves out of contention for Caleb Williams or Drake May. But Jarrett Stidham will start this week for the Broncos. He's a career backup. He had played for the New England Patriots as well as the Las Vegas Raiders. So he's a product of the Bill Belichick offensive scheme, or more specifically, McDaniel's offensive scheme. He's played 13 games in his whole career and has a career rating of 73.5 and thrown for only 6 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So he's a back, like, let's just call it what it is. He's a backup quarterback. What do we expect out of him? I think with Sean Payton, he gets the most out of his players. So maybe a little bit on the higher end of what he's going to be able to do against this Chargers defense, but you can't expect too much out of him. The Broncos injury report doesn't look too heavy, so we can expect to see some great potential matchups between QJ and Patrick Surtain. And like, look, this isn't the biggest game of the season, and really has no implication besides the Chargers and Broncos draft capital at this point, right? Because we know the Broncos are basically out of the playoff race, and the loss for us would obviously help. But what I'm looking for in this game is what we saw last week versus the Bills, and that's the fight and the will to play that we've seen from a rejuvenated team following the Staley firing under this new interim head coach, GIF. GIF or GIF? There's some controversy on whether it's GIF or GIF. Tell me what you think. Go ahead, put a comment in. I'll just call him GIF for now. I'm also looking into the matchups that we can see between some of our young players going up against elite players like Patrick Surtain. So if we look at the injury report as of 12/27, which is this beautiful Wednesday. Yeah, I think it's a Wednesday, right? It looks like Keenan Allen is likely not going to play, as he didn't practice today on Wednesday. And we see that Joshua Palmer is also likely out for this game due to him being in concussion protocol. So we will more than likely see QJ as wide receiver one. Now, we've been calling for him to have a big game all season, especially with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and now Joshua Palmer out again. But we just simply haven't seen it, and he simply hasn't produced or has had that game that we want to see out of our first round draft pick. But he did have a big catch the last time we played the Broncos, so maybe that can be a team that QJ really thrives against, the Broncos, and plays well against, similar to like the way Mike Will plays against the Chiefs. And with his connection with Easton Stick, they obviously had lots of time throwing and catching in mini camp as well as in practices, because QJ was the fourth receiver on our roster coming into this year. Maybe that connection will start to pick up this game. Some other big news is that Joey Bosa has the possibility of playing this week. It would be good to see him, how he comes off of that injury, and what we thought would be a season-ending injury. He has two big games coming up, right? Because as we know, he could become a cap casualty based off of his performance and his injuries in the past couple years. And I think it's going to be hard to keep him. We owe him a lot of money. Like, let's be honest, we owe him a lot of freaking money, and it's going to be hard to get off of that because of like some of the dead money. But it is a move that's looking like it's going to potentially happen, especially if he comes out in these last couple games and doesn't perform well. And you're going to give him some leeway because he is coming off an injury. But like I said, he's potentially going to be a cap casualty. And then I think Khalil Mack, right? Khalil Mack has had a great season. I'm not sure if he got that half a sack last week or if he got a full sack, but it looked like it was him. There was a bunch of Chargers players, so it might have been a team sack. But I think what we have to root for with Khalil Mack is hoping that he continues to get these sacks and just has an all-time season, because he deserves it, man. That guy's given everything for us. Um, he's played his heart out, and you just want to see him thrive, right? So hopefully against the Broncos with a backup quarterback, he gets to the quarterback, gets some good sacks, and we could cheer and root for that. Like I said, the main thing that we want to see is that this team is playing hard and that this team is competitive. We don't want to see that half-ass play that we've seen against the Raiders. I think we could all enjoy a game that is competitive and they're all playing hard. I want to see Alohi Gilman continue to play hard. That dude's one of my favorite players, and I hope that he comes back to the Chargers next year because he's an absolute ball hawk. He's a smart player, and then hopefully we get to see um, some of our young guys coming back from injury, get out there and play. Maybe some Dean Leonard. I know he was limited in practice, but if has the potential to come out and play, I think that would be good for us to know where we stand as far as roster signings and moves that are going to take place at the end of the season. Now, I knew that preview was short, but let's be honest, it is kind of like a preseason game, right? And all we're doing is just seeing which players on our team are going to play hard, which players on our team are trying to earn that contract and stay with the Chargers next year. Because next year is going to be a huge year, especially with Brandon Staley's firing, with a new head coach, with a new GM. It's going to be a new Chargers football team. It's going to be a new Chargers culture. There's going to be a lot of rejuvenation. There's going to be a lot of noise and a lot of coverage on the team based off who they select as their head coach and their GM next year, especially coming in with all the talent that we have on this team. So it's important that we continue to play hard and that we see the players that are playing hard and we sign them next year. And we all know that Sebastian Joseph Day was also released a couple days ago. He's signing with the 49ers. And he was one of Brandon Staley's guys. I know a lot of people were disappointed because they say that he was a big locker room guy. But based off the reports that came out about Brandon Staley, there was a lot of reports that the locker room was divided and the division was between Brandon Staley's guys, who he brought in to change the culture and to play his scheme, and the other guys basically. And I think that is probably part of the problem, right? That was definitely a huge problem and why the Chargers couldn't get to where we needed to get this year. And unfortunately, that falls on the shoulders of Brandon Staley. There's also reports that he favored his guys and didn't show the same respect or the same attitude towards those players. So that definitely contributes to a divided locker room. So I'm glad that that stage and phase of this Chargers season is over, and we're now focused on the future, collecting our draft capital, hopefully getting a top 5 pick, so we could either get a superior tier 1 talent out of the first round in a top 5 pick, or trade back and gather as much draft capital as we can to start to rebuild this team who's going to be in a significant cap situation next year, and then moving forward with Justin Herbert's contract and then some other contracts like Slater that we're going to have to pay. So as like I said, this game's not huge right now in this point of the season, but it's huge for the implications that it has on our future success and the Chargers' future organization, right? So in closing, I'll give you guys my prediction real quick. I think, and like I said, picking draft capital, right, or hoping for draft capital, I think the Chargers are actually going to win this game. With Joey Bosa coming back, Khalil Mack, uh, and with our rookie Tuli, I think that they're going to get to the quarterback. And Stidham as a backup quarterback is not going to feel comfortable back there. He has some good receivers to throw to, potential tight ends. Deutsch, I don't think he's going to be playing. He might be out this week, so that might be good. But I think the Chargers defense is going to have a good game against this Broncos offense without Danger Russ. And I think we're going to pull off a win. Now, Easton Stick has played well in the past couple games, in my opinion, as well as he can at least for a backup quarterback. And hopefully QJ, like I said, could get that matchup against Patrick Surtain. and show us what he's really about and have a good game. But like I said, for my prediction, I think Chargers win 24-19 in a game that's going to probably be somewhat ugly and is going to be decided by the play of the special teams and the play of the defenses. I do think they're going to score some points, but that's just my prediction. All right. So, hey, if you're a returning subscriber, again, I just want to say thank you for tuning in again and checking out my podcast. If you're a new viewer and you've made it this far, hey, shout out to you. Appreciate it. I know videos on YouTube are kind of long and it's hard to get through a whole video. So if you did stay through this whole video, I appreciate you. Go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button and come back for more. Um, I will be making more videos all the way up to the end of the season. And then once the off season comes, that's going to be a whole lot of fun discussing our new head coach, new GM, and the potential roster moves that the Chargers are going to make. So again, hit that like and subscribe button and come back for more, right? I will see you guys next year. This is the God of Thunder and bolt up, baby.